Government's memorandum in support of resentencing for J6 defendant Guy Reffitt. Now, if you're not familiar with why he would need a resentencing, the Supreme Court ruled against the 1512 charge used against many J6ers. And this has led to the need for resentencing because in many cases it was their highest charge for the amount of years that they had in prison. But it doesn't always work out in their favor, and the government is pushing hard in many cases to keep them in jail. Let's take a look at this one here. Guy Wesley Reffitt, the defendant or Reffitt, led the charge on the west front of the Capitol building on January 6, 2021, facilitating a breach of the building that lasted hours and threatened the lives of members of Congress and their staff. Reffitt, a member of the Texas Three Percenters militia group, stormed the Capitol on that day, armed with a handgun and ready to use it. In Reffitt's own words, he went to the Capitol with the intention of taking the Capitol with everybody fucking else and dragging them motherfuckers out, kicking and screaming. They have a government exhibit and a timestamp. Following the events of January 6, Reffitt threatened the safety of his own children if they turned him into law enforcement. Reffitt's conduct on January 6 was among the most serious and consequential of all of the rioters charged with crimes stemming from the attack on the Capitol on that day. For his pivotal role in the events of January 6, this court previously sentenced Reffitt to 87 months of incarceration. At the sentencing hearing, this court found that the 87-month sentence was sufficient but not greater than necessary to comply with the purposes of sentencing 18 U.S.C. 3553. The same is true today, as this court has recognized the defendant's conduct on January 6 was more harmful or egregious than the typical case presented by the relevant sentencing guidelines range. The government agrees. The attack on the west front of the Capitol precipitated the breach of the Capitol building. Reffitt led that attack, armed with a handgun and in full tactical gear, and then threatened the safety of his own children in the days following. Accordingly, for the reasons set forth herein, the United States requests that this court depart, or vary upwards, to sentence Reffitt to 87 months of incarceration, 3 years of supervised release, $2,000 in restitution, and a mandatory assessment of $100 per felony and $10 per Class B misdemeanor. Now, as you can imagine, there is quite a bit in here, but you can find articles covering this case. The main takeaway I wanted to have at the start here is that they are wanting him to get the exact same sentence. They're wanting a variance upwards. And that is an argument we're seeing in a lot of J6 cases, that the government would have asked for the variance upwards in all of the other charges, but they didn't need to because the 1512 charge existed. That is why it's not a panacea, as many of them believe, to actually get rid of their long sentences. But there is something else in this document that is rather interesting here. Reffitt's post-sentencing statements. Reffitt has been imprisoned since his trial and is currently housed in the Okogie Jail in Oklahoma. Since his trial, Reffitt has supported his wife's efforts as one of the organizers of the January 6 Vigil, a group that seeks the release of people they call the January 6 hostages or political prisoners. Reffitt has called into the, and they're putting it in quotes of course, because this is a protest group, vigil on several occasions since his initial sentencing. Reffitt's text messages and calls from the jail also indicate that he continues to lack remorse for his actions, and that he views his imprisonment as an injustice. Reffitt told an acquaintance in a text message, "I'm a very strong patriot with fabulous support from patriot warriors as we navigate troubled waters." Government Exhibit 2 on October 10th, 2024. After a visit with that same acquaintance, he texted, "I do love the J6 family dynamics. We really are a huge family now. We all of a common goal, save America and the people." Reffitt's communications further demonstrate that his time in prison has only deepened his sense of pride in his actions on January 6th, and he still considers himself a patriot for his crimes. In an October 7th, 2024 call, Reffitt boasted about people who praised him for his actions on January 6th. He said, "As I walk through this mess of a system that this judicial crap is, I am constantly running up against people who say things along the lines of, 'You were there. That is so badass. I met someone who was there.'" He continued, "I get a lot of that," and commented, "Now it's infamous." Government exhibit. There's an exhibit there with a timestamp. The next day, on a call with his wife, Reffitt said, "Let's do our jobs as patriots and fix America's people." Again, it's a government exhibit. Reffitt also continues to express contempt about the justice system and this court. For instance, on October 7th, 2024, Reffitt texted, "My resentencing date is set for December 2nd, 2024, and 2 p.m. Hope Trump wins, so the court will get off D's nuts." Again, government resentencing exhibit 2 at 2. And when the sentencing hearing was pushed back by 4 days at the request of Reffitt's own counsel, Reffitt stated, "They love the mental degradation of the people, a very communist tactic." How quaint that he blames his own lawyer's tactic on communists. Yes, they are using his communications with Nicole Reffitt, his wife, against him. They are using the corner group, the Freedom Corner group, against him. Very openly here. Now, from Guy Reffitt's side, I'm going to give you the conclusion they have here. Based upon the foregoing, undersigned counsel respectfully suggests that the court should again impose a sentence consistent with the imprisonment range set forth by the United States Sentencing Guidelines, and in any event should not impose a sentence greater than 58 months of imprisonment. So, government wants the 87 he originally got. He is trying to get no more than 58. Now, with that being said, there is something else to mention. Now, there are multiple letters that were submitted onto the docket in support of Guy Reffitt, but I only want to read one. To the Honorable Judge, I'm not going to butcher the name. I truly appreciate your time in reading my letter for my husband, Guy Wesley Reffitt. I have been Guy's wife and partner for almost 22 years and have known him for 25. We have proudly raised 3 beautiful, spirited, mindful children, Sarah, Jax, Peyton. Guy is not always an easy person, but he is always open and present for the ones he loves. Guy is a self-made man and has always put others before himself. Much of Guy's personality comes from the fact that he has been on his own since he was 15, and he has had only himself to back himself up. Guy is exactly who he is, even if his words are conflated, his heart is true. Guy is a person of integrity, pragmatic, and an observer. When we met, it was the beginning of everything, and we created 3 humans that are spiritual, forward-thinking, and loving. As a family, we have traveled this globe and have done it together as a family. Guy and I have always thought this is how we as a family would take on the world together, but the world had a different plan. As a family, we have gone through the ups and downs of life and all that it can throw at you. And so, during the time of 2016, we as a family were going through changes, and in a parallel way, so was our country. During this time, we were all just trying to understand each other and navigate these waters of very divisive ideology, and have some kind of common ground. But as COVID restrictions began and our world changed, so did the dynamics of our family. I will not take up your Honor's time with rehashing the effects of COVID known and the debate of COVID unknown, but what I can speak to is the effect it had on my family. Guy and his career working abroad was for now gone. Jackson's senior year of high school was to never be finished. The isolation, the time online feeding their own egos, and the tension in our country spilling over into our living room. I truly thought it would pass, that it was a generational issue. Growing pains, not issues that would permanently transform our family. But in hindsight, I was naive as a mother and wife and allowed my ignorance of mental health to damage my family. Mine and Guy's only focus was to heal and restore our family. Nothing is more important. We need to be whole as a family and heal together. I have been a stay-at-home mom for 17 of our 22 years together, and I take that job seriously. Guy has been the main income provider in our home the entirety of the time, and if it had not been for the generosity of the American people, there would have been no way for me to continue in our home. Now, if you didn't know, if you don't follow past stuff with the corner protest group, Nicole is right up there with Ashley Babbitt's mom. She's deeply involved in this. This is the same corner that has had multiple J6ers have it used against them in court. It has had their release conditions restricted. It has had their own members arrested for assault, convicted of sexual abuse, convicted of violating an anti-stalking order. That's the group. That is the group that I have to assume she's meaning by the American Patriots being the supporters of that movement. For anyone that didn't know, Guy is present in his family's lives. It has been a great loss to us that he has been gone, emotionally and financially. To see the fear and pain in our children's faces, he and I take pause. We have spent many tearful calls on the subject of our family and the want, drive, and love there is to overcome the issues and ideology of the world. We just need Guy home to fully heal. I understand and respect the jury of the people and how hard the events of January 6th must have been on the people in the district, and I appreciate their time to perform their civic duty. Guy is a loving, productive, non-violent member in society who's always trying to make himself and those around him better. I thank you, Honor, again for your time and consideration of reading this letter. Best regards, Nicole Reffitt. Now, in this, there's also a letter I saw from the daughters, but I didn't see a letter from the son. Maybe I missed it, but I don't think it's there. The son, Jackson here, the one that she mentions, he's the one that turned the father in, as the state mentioned. This is the same corner group that Nicole is in, that had George Santos attend, who's, we know what happened with George Santos, had Matt Gaetz attend, who we know what happened to them. They have essentially just been a curse, right? Anyone who touches this group, joins them, it seems to be a curse. And now the question is, will it continue? Will the statements that were said to that corner, the statements that are promoted by that corner, are they going to be what keeps Guy Reffitt in prison longer? That's the question we're looking at. We're seriously looking at a question of, will he be in there longer because he got involved calling out in this J6 community? And this has been a recurring thing. It's done nothing but hurt J6 defendants, right? And that's what I find so amazing about this group, because it's done what? It's done what? It's accomplished what? Well, it's become exhibits. And we'll have to see how it shakes out in December. The date is, was it December 2nd? What do I think's going to happen here? I have no clue. The judge might not do a variance upwards, but as they made clear in their opening, you can read the case as much as you want. There's a real solid case against Guy Reffitt, a real solid argument that I'm sure they can make at the sentencing hearing as well for why he should have the variance upwards. Out of all the J6ers, people keep there's a fight in the J6 community about who gets a pardon, right? The violent J6ers, the non-violent J6ers, what counts as a violent J6er? Well, this is a guy who wore tactical gear and brought a gun. So I would say that the pardon all nonviolent J6ers, I don't think this is the guy that they're talking about. Some of them flat out say if someone brought a weapon, they shouldn't be pardoned in the J6 community. There's a lot of infighting still going on in that group about who will Trump pardon, if anyone. My guess is he's going to be lazy with it, right? So it's either going to be he's going to do a blanket pardon, or he's not going to do that because maybe they'll be like, listen, there's some people in there you shouldn't pardon. It'll look bad for you. Instead, he'll be like the J6 praying grandma. Give her a pardon. 3 or 4 token ones, and then J6ers get shoved to the side. Doesn't need him anymore. He won the election, right? That's my guess. We'll see how it goes. I think it'll be one or the other. I don't think we're really going to be playing this game of in between. The only way we would is if he maybe had someone do the investigating for him. Trump's not going to make this decision. He's just going to let someone else figure it out. That's my opinion on that. Yeah, it's all here, all available. You can go and look it up if you'd like. It's all on Court Listener. You can see there's the letters and the memorandums. And also, this will have all of the other information you might want. Remember, Nicole mentioned the children, so I think we should mention right here, real quick. Then on January 11th, Reffitt threatened the lives of his own children. He told his then 18-year-old son and 16-year-old daughter that if they turned him into the FBI, they would be traitors and traitors get shot. He further told his daughter that if used her cell phone to record him or post anything about him online, he would put a bullet through her phone. Both of his children knew that their father kept firearms in their home. Reffitt nonetheless maintained that his efforts to overtake Congress were justified. On January 13th, Reffitt told his family he had every constitutional right to carry a weapon and take over Congress, as we tried to do.